Hello, this is Kyle Van Hook, and I'm just here to show you the project plan for final project. So the game concept is I'm going to be making a 2D platformer, a lot like Mario. You're playing as an alien that has crash landed and is trying to make it back to a landing zone to be rescued. The rescue zone will be a flag. It's planned to have 3 levels, acting 3 levels, one level minimum, just so it works. But I want to have 3 levels. We'll see if I can actually pull it off, or if I figure it out. Anyways, the levels will be acting as mazes, with the final having the rescue flag, or the main rescue flag. Getting the flag will be the getting the flag. I cannot speak. Getting to the flag will be the victory condition of each level. Small flags will be in the first 2 levels, basically acting as a kind of checkpoint, not the final ending goal, but just a hey, get over here. Basically from your allies, while the large flag will be the end of the whole game. And it's once they're on the 3rd level, if they manage to touch that, if they've won. Failing conditions are if the player loses all their lives during the games. Basic coding. All right. So we need to show at least one if statement with an else clause. The plan is for the damage on overlap for an enemy. We'll need to detect whether a hidden enemy or object will be insta-killed. So an if or can be used to detect if that enemy or object insta-kills. One abstract class. This one will be easy. The controller, the pawn, the health, and the death classes will all have a abstract super class that they will all pull most of their base information from, which should allow for a good chunk of polymorphism, since they'll be able to easily change or whatever method they have, or add new methods. For one for loop, I plan to have a lever or a button or something that the player can touch that will spawn a set of coins, like 3 to 4, over a small time frame. I don't want it to make it instantaneous. Well, actually, no, that would be cheap. I want to make it in a timer, so it has to actually go through a for loop. And they can spawn them one at a time, like here, 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 here. For each loop, I don't think I'm going to need a for each loop, so I'm probably just going to implement it as a debug message just to show it's there. One enemy list, I think in one of the levels, it's just going to be a room with a bunch of enemies that the player has to defeat. And defeating enemies is required to unlock a blocked area that will keep the player from progressing to the flag. Very similar to what we did in the meteorite, in the asteroids game. For one dictionary, I don't really think I need to use a dictionary, so I will most likely implement it in the game manager as a debug log to show it's there and it works. User interface, you must have screen space canvas that stretches with the change in window size on either axis. And the plan is to make a health score and a score counter and a lives counter. Those are basic, but they're pretty much all that I need for this project, just to show the user the basic objects, not objects, the basic information. One world space canvas. I'm thinking maybe having text, maybe acting as arrows or stuff. Though I could also add like health bars on bigger enemies to show they're tougher instead of just being immediately insta-killed. You must use one of the following UI types: a text box, an image, or a button. Most of these can we'll probably use for menu screens or UI. Score text will be a text box, most likely. Well, actually, no. Well, that will probably just be a text for canvas. But I do use text boxes just to explain instructions or maybe a story. I did that with the Phantom Force project, just to make a very simple UI, very simple menu. As for the where are you image, planning to put an image of a heart next to a life bar, just to show, hey, this is a life bar. This is what it looks like, and it's right over here. And everyone usually recognizes the heart. And buttons will be easy. I'm planning to use buttons as the menu, basically menu navigation, except for like enter. Uh, they'll lead to next scene from the start menu, lead to credits. You'll be able to click a exit button. You'll be able to click a play again button on the ending screens. For audio, we're going to make an audio source manager singleton for this project. This will store all the audio clips in. We're also going to be using play clip at point for the player jump, and most likely also for coins. No, actually, no. Play one shot. No, play clip at point. Play clip at point will not be for jump. It will be for coins, because you're going to destroy those. Most likely it will play one shot will be for the jump sound. Just so it plays at the sound that we were at. Your code must use a game manager singleton. The plan is to make a game manager singleton that will be used to track scores and lives, as well as the victory and defeat the conditions, and then move the move the player to the next scene if the conditions are met. Code must use the pawn controller and pawn pattern. The player will have a pawn script to hold the movement function, so the controller script will be used to access those functions separately into the pawn. Both of these classes will be child classes of a pawn and controller as abstract superclass respectively, and the death and health classes will also have abstract superclasses. The need for multiple child classes of health and death classes for multiple objects is needed. It just makes the game easier when you have multiple classes. You must use the single purpose principle. Most code objects are going to be used for maybe a single use. Well, not a single use, more like a single purpose. Maybe I just want something code to rotate something, or code to spawn something. Maybe I want it to be spawned at the position it's attached to. Maybe I want it to be spawned at a position away from whatever object it's attached to. That way it just makes it easier. As for objects, principles of object-oriented programming. We're going to be hiding so for abstraction, we're going to be hiding most of the details that don't need to be shown. So unless variables don't need to be public, they won't be shown. Encapsulation. Encapsulation will be basically, we're only going to be using objects. I cannot explain encapsulation. It's gone out my head. I'll come back to that. For inheritance, we've already got the plan to make multiple child classes like health, death, and also the controller and pawns. Because we'll need a controller and pawn for the player character, and probably controller and pawn for the enemies, depending on which ones we make. Polymorphism will most likely have multiple. Actually, no, inheritance. They'll be inheriting from the superclass, the abstract classes. But polymorphism is means that we'll be having multiple different classes that are all similar or inherit from the abstract class, just slightly modified and say having a method overridden. As for encapsulation, we'll make it so that other than game managers and sound managers, they should all need to be need to have an object, like basically getting a component to actually be gotten from the outside. I plan to keep all my code commented and readable, usually above whatever method and whatever is going on. It just helps make my life and whoever is reading its lives easier. In order to use frame rate independence, I'm planning on making a moving platform. Maybe one or two, depending on whether I want them to be probably up and down or left or right. But as for that, we'll end up using time.delta time whenever we're using vector transformation in order to make it move frame rate independent. For input or movement in the player controller class, we'll use the input.getKey for continuous movement left and right. The input.getKey down will be for player to jump. I do not know if we will be having a attack method. Maybe I want to see if I can try and do the Mario Goomba stomp. And if not, I can have a power up that maybe gives the player an ammo counter for like a few shots before it's gone. But I want to do the Goomba stomp. As for movement, you must move at least one object while setting its vectors. Yeah, I said we'll be doing the moving platform, and we'll be moving the platform via the transformed opposition. Collision will probably be very important for this. Player on the ground will need to have colliders, as well as objects and enemies. A set of spikes will most likely have a trigger, and maybe water too. Since we don't really care about going through it, we just want those to be dead zones for anything unfortunate enough to jump into them or contact them. Physics. I'm planning to use force for the player movement. This is so that we can use force when jumping. So when we move the player vertically using force, it's still also affected by gravity, which is important for the player for a platformer like this. Yeah, your game must start with a press any key to begin button. That'll just be on the title screen. And a menu, credits, game over screen conditions. Your player will be able to return the menu. The player will be able to quit to desktop from the main menu. There's going to be multiple menus that are each dedicated to this. I'm also probably going to be adding a menu that can that will best show the basic controls. I did that, and it's just helpful to have in there. Have your game will have some sort of data that perishes between game sessions. This will be the score that will perish between game sessions and will be able to be set on the win and game over screens. Your code must be readable, well commented, and follow UAT coding standards. Evidence of planning must be presented. This is at least partially evidence for what plan I have. Commented code will be implemented to keep the code clean and readable. I'm going to be putting this up on itch.io, and it will have a GitHub repository. I will need to make a portfolio. I already have one, but that's for art. I'll need to quickly make one for just game. And I will try to make this as polished as I possibly can. All right. That is, yeah, that's the whole board. And the only other thing I have to show you now is that all of the sprites for the tile maps I grabbed, well, this is the basic tile map. I still need to implement the background and the character, but I've already got the sprites in game. Not you. Oh yeah. I wish I had brought this up first before I started this, but this here is the GitHub for the final project. This is it's made, it's ready. And I think that is all that's important to actually show to talk about. This longer than it was supposed to be. Yeah. Thank you for listening to me ramble again. And please have a good day. All right, stop sharing, and then we will turn off the recording. Goodbye.